If I was changing the laws and I say conjugal visits should be allowed, it should be allowed obviously under certain conditions.
I'm kind of on the fence with this tab because I feel like you're in prison for a reason. Naturally, you're going to be stripped of certain privileges.
Yeah, I said it. Okay, so I said conjugal visits should be allowed in South African prisons, and I'll have to justify that with a couple of facts and statements here. Okay, before we get to voice notes, it's been a long debated issue, very controversial, not just in SA but around the world. Okay, so take a listen to this. South Africa has the highest number of prisoners in Africa and the 12th highest number of prisoners in the entire world. Okay, with more than 16,000 prisoners in South Africa serving life sentences. And all of this is according to a 2020 annual report by Inspecting Judge of Prisons, Judge Edwin Cameron, right? And in his judgment, right, he added a couple of things, and they pointed out a particular case. There was a case where a man actually made a request to the court to have conjugal visits with his wife. Okay. Now, they had been married prior, they've got kids together. He was then sentenced and put in jail. Okay, so he asked for conjugal visits and the judge turned him down, but he added that he did not believe that it was the last word on the matter. He said the matter of conjugal visits remains an important issue and has complex policy and legal implications. Ordinarily, many personal and intimate human relationships are characterized by physical closeness and sexual intimacy, though not always a vital part of those relationships. It is said that such intimacy and physical connection between people adds value and quality to relationships. On the other hand, there are many personal and intimate relationships that exist and thrive without the need for physical or sexual connection. He said, although prisoners are allowed and encouraged to keep up and keep contact with family members, it didn't extend to conjugal visits. He said, much has been written and said on the matter whether prisoners should enjoy conjugal visits, and there are many who argue with great force and persuasion that the object of imprisonment is not to punish but to create conditions under which rehabilitation can meaningfully take place, and conjugal visits would help with that and should be permitted. On the other hand, it's argued that the deprivation of liberty that imprisonment necessarily entails has its consequence for those whose freedoms have been curtailed as a necessity of giving up these freedoms associated with incarceration. Included in that may be regarded as normal family life or normal relationships with a spouse or a partner. Okay?
I hear you. But I'm kind of on the fence with this tab because I feel like you're in prison for a reason and should be punished accordingly.
Sure.
And naturally, you're going to be stripped of certain privileges. And that just comes with the territory of breaking the law. Hello?
Okay, so for me, it is a case of, it depends. It's an application that would need to be put in. If I was changing the laws and I say conjugal visits should be allowed, it should be allowed obviously under certain conditions. One of those being good behavior inside the prison, okay?
Petty crime, though. It's got to be like a petty crime.
Yeah, obviously I'm getting to that. Point number 2 is severity of the crime that you are in for. And I would say if you are in for any sexually related or charged offense, you don't qualify for conjugal visits,
zone.
Okay? But maybe it was someone that committed fraud or they are in prison
For selling dope.
for selling, etc., or selling drugs. As part of their rehabilitation, upon showing good behavior in the prison, I believe that they should be allowed to have conjugal visits with a spouse, or like it can't just be someone who wrote you a letter in prison and wants to come and see you. You understand? But if you have a family on the outside, you should be able to see that family. And if you have a wife or a husband on the outside, you should be allowed conjugal visits, in my opinion. One of the things that they argue against it is they say, who's going to fund this? Because it's going to require extra manpower. Who's going to watch over these people?
Yeah.
And it's going to require facilities to be adjusted. And in certain parts of the world where they have adopted the conjugal visit policy, right? Because there are many countries where This is legal. There are parts of South America where families can actually move in to the prison. Your wife and your kids can move in and they can stay in the cell with you. And we lock the doors and you and your family can be together. Okay? Now, in countries that have adopted this, one of the ways of paying for it is you pay for it. So there's a charge. Your family or whoever it is that's coming for the conjugal visit will have to pay a set fee for that visit, and all the proceeds of that money will go towards facilitating the actual conjugal visits.
That makes sense.
Let's see what them chanas are saying. Do you agree or disagree with me? Should we allow tlof in the prisons?
I agree with you, Tap. Conjugal visits should be allowed, but provided that you are married. So it should only be allowed between like a prisoner and their spouse if the prisoner is actually married. Otherwise, it's going to be chaos because all these prisoners will have multiple girlfriends there, and it wouldn't be ideal. So yeah, provided that you're married, conjugal visits should be allowed.
Yeah, I agree.
Yo, Tab, this morning is quite very, very controversial. From 200 Rand Gucci to advocating for conjugal visits for prisoners. For me personally, I don't think that conjugal visits should be a thing. We like if you're talking about like a utopian situation whereby you're actually doing a very good job at reforming these people. Kodwa manje, we're in a very critical time right now. Gender-based violence is quite rife, and you want to give people who may be offenders due to gender-based violence, you want to give them rights. So people here, they do very heavy crimes, They do very heavy crimes.
Hence I said
rape, murder. What's the statute of limitations towards these things?
100%. There have to be statute of limitations, and that's why I said it would depend on your case. It would depend on how many years you have served, and it would depend, mainly for me, it would depend on your rehabilitation. You understand? So if you have shown rehabilitation in the prison, maybe you have now educated yourself and you're working towards getting a degree. You must remember, we paint all these prisoners with the same brush, hey?
Sure.
That's my problem is we paint prisoners with the same brush, that they are all the worst of the worst. They are all, people who rape or kill, etc. There are people who are in prison who are genuinely trying to rehabilitate themselves.
And that's what Kim is fighting for, by the way.
100%. Even Kim Kardashian is fighting for it. So I'm saying there should be, the ability to still connect and have an intimate physical connection with your loved ones that are on the outside, that can also inspire you to behave well in prison and rehabilitate yourself. Conjugal visits can do that.
So what if you have a side chick and a wife?
Well, then the side chick can't come and see you in prison. Only the wife. That would then be the law. The wife.
Oh, a young boy.
You understand? Because this is someone, maybe we want to expand our family. I'm serving here's the situation for you. I'm serving 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And we've got a 2-year-old. I get sent in for 10 years. My wife is planning on staying and waiting for me. And when I get out, we're going to be a family again. But when I get out, maybe she is now too old and doesn't want to have another child, etc. I need to be able to father a child. We can do that with these conjugal visits, and I can extend my family and make my family bigger and have even more motivation to rehabilitate myself, not get myself into trouble in prison, so that on the outside I've even got new family members that I'm coming out to. One more? That's actually happened, by the way. In 2012, an inmate petitioned for a conjugal visit and was turned down by the judge, but was then allowed to father a child with his wife through artificial insemination. So he made a donation into a cup, and that was then given to the wife, and she was then inseminated, and they gave birth to a baby boy from inside prison.
YMornings, 5 to 9 a.m.